Hey, it's Dave from Bullpen Cycles, and today we're working on our Cove 450 Rally. I got this lowering kit from Soupy's Performance. We're going to try to lower this bike. I did manage to get it titled. That's a good thing. So I'm going to tell you about how to title bikes like this and what you need to know if you buy other off-brand, niche, or even bikes off Amazon and you hope to get them titled. And I have a major announcement to make. Well, a major announcement for me, and we'll get on to that in a bit. And then we're going to follow up a little bit on how to title antique bikes here in Florida now that they updated the rules. This is my Cove 450 Rally. It's the standard model. It's one of the first ones off the boat. I'm prepping it for the Cross Florida Dual Sport run. Now you remember that. Last year I ran my Greaves Grump and I beat the tar out of it. So we're sending that out. That won't be ready. And quite frankly, I don't know if I'm going to be ready, because, well, part of my announcement is I'm undergoing a major surgery. See, I have the dreaded C word. I have prostate cancer, and I'm going for surgery in 2 days. And the surgery, well, it kind of sucks, because they go in with robots and they pull your prostate out your belly button, and that's really gross. Now, why am I telling you this? Well, because if you're a man over, say, 55, you should get checked. And as uncomfortable as it is, and weird and unpleasant, you should get a physical exam. Don't rely on your PSA, because my PSA was perfectly normal. Yet I have cancer, and we think we caught it early, so I should be good. But the downside is I'll be on restrictions. I won't be able to drive for a whole month. I'm supposed to lift up nothing more than a small carton of milk for 30 days. You might help me in that period. I'll tell you what our plans are for the channel while I am going dark. In the meantime, I'm doing as much as I can, hoping that I will be strong and healthy enough come the end of October to run in the Cross Florida tour. And I don't know if I will. I'm going to get what I can get done now, because I won't be able to do anything for the next 4 to 5 weeks. And if I can't run this, maybe I'll run something like my Norton on the Cross Florida street path. So I don't know. Anyway, let me tell you about titling these bikes. I titled that bike no problem. 6 months off the boat. I went to the Florida, well, I went to the fast tag place. I could have gone to the tax collector, showed him my paperwork, and walked out with my title. This, on the other hand, I bought that 14 months ago, and Florida still won't title it. So what states are doing now on new motorcycles is they're looking up the manufacturer on NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And that manufacturer has to be listed with NHTSA in order to sell motorcycles in the United States. And I don't think it matters if they're off-road bikes or street bikes. If they are a motor vehicle manufacturer or distributor operating in the United States or selling in the United States, they need to register with NHTSA. Cove is listed in NHTSA under USA Motor Toys. And if you type the VIN from these early Coveys, therein lies the problem for some states. Because originally it was off-road, and that's what this red warning is, off-road only. And if you live in a police state and you come up with a red flag when you enter your VIN, you are not going to be able to register that. On the plus side, Covey is actually listed twice. It's a brand listed by two different manufacturers. One under USA Motor Toys for the off-road only version, and the other under something called Tibet New Summit Motorcycle. And that is the one that I was able to register my Covey as. Florida didn't get too hung up on Covey versus Covey. Covey was in there, they saw it, they registered it, there's a street legal version of it, it's got a catalytic converter, bing, I'm in, I got a title, that bike is 6 months off the boat, it's got a plate. If I'm healthy enough, we're going to be running it across Florida in a few months. Now the Reissue, and boy, I really like this bike. I'm trying my best to be patient. And I know the company is actually working with NHTSA to get it done. And I think the problems with NHTSA, Reissue and the distributor is Central Power Sports. I talked to Mark. He has filed the application, and he filed the application last August, and maybe before then. It keeps getting rejected, but because this bike isn't there, I can't plate it. The same goes for AJP. And again, the distributor, they're trying to get it done. And if they get it done, I'll be able to register that in Florida. And it doesn't really matter if it comes back red, provided it has all the equipment. Because here in Florida, man, you can drive dune buggy rail jobs on the street. As long as they have all the equipment, lights, turns, horns, and all that, we're okay. Now think of it. This is Reissue, no record found. This is AJP on NHTSA, no record found. Now Central Power Sports also brings in SWM. SWM, that used to be an Italian manufacturer, and I had one here a couple of months back from the old days, the ones with the big Rotax motor in it. Now it's the old Husqvarna Cagiva plant. They punched out a TE 450, I think, to 600 or 650, and they make, oh, the one I'm interested in is the what's it called? Sport Dual, something like that. And Jared from South Mountain Cycle, we saw him on my previous video. He's going to be a dealer for those, and they are in NHTSA. Probably because that manufacturer has been around a lot longer. So how do you know if your bike's going to be in there? Take SSR. If you saw my video back from Mid-Ohio, I had the SSR Laser 6, a 50cc moped. Is that something that you could register if you needed to? And I looked up SSR, and the thing about SSR is it's a brand, but each motorcycle could be made by a different company, because that Laser 6 was made by Vachon, and the MSO said Vachon. If you look up SSR on NHTSA, it says Yingang, if I'm saying that right. And yet I just bought two SSR, I think they're XF250 F, they are supposed to be street legal enduros. Let's see what they are. Shandong Pioneer Motorcycle Ltd. Limited. Make SHNG. It doesn't say SSR anywhere on the MSO. So you could get an SSR with an MSO like this, and if SHNG isn't in NHTSA, you might have a problem. So how do you know if your bike is registrable or not? Well, the best way to do it is to enter the VIN. Go to NHTSA's VIN decoder and enter the full 17-digit VIN. And if it comes up, green, you're golden. Even in the police states. If it comes up red, you're okay in many states, but not all. Take, for example, I have a Beta cross trainer. Now, Beta's been around since forever. They've been around since the 60s. You type Beta into NHTSA, and it comes up as a manufacturer. No problem with that. However, you type your VIN for your Beta cross trainer in the VIN decoder place, and it comes up red. Warning, off-road use only. And yet, this came through with a Pennsylvania title, which has since been transferred to Florida. Now, if you're in Pennsylvania, this used to be legal, but 2 years ago, Pennsylvania passed a new law. Pennsylvanians have been having their titles and license plates recalled. So if you've got a 2-stroke Husqvarna or 2-stroke KTM, and it's titled and registered in Pennsylvania, you probably already got your letter. Why did they do that? I think they did it because of all the Kia cars, the little gray market pickup trucks and little tiny gray market campers and Japanese cars that have been coming in, that not only are they not EPA certified, they're not crash worthy. And I think some states are cracking down on that. Does that cover it? So let's see, you get a bike off Amazon. If they don't give you the VIN before you buy it, how do you know? Well, you're gonna have to find someone that has the same make and model and query their VIN, or at least go into NHTSA and try to find the manufacturer. Now, I search under manufacturer, I enter that field into the database. If I don't find anything, I put it as doing business as, and sometimes I put it just as the brand. I found that SSR XF250X, but not because I found Shandong Motors or whatever it was, but that bike came back green. So I'm gonna have no trouble registering those, titling those, and offering them for sale. You have no trouble with Cove. Now with the Reissue, I have an option. Well, I could just wait, see what happens, and hopefully my problem gets solved. Or I can go to an outfit like Dirt Legal. Now I have a question for those who have used Dirt Legal. I've done it once, and I got a title. I think it was an Arizona title. And it came back, the owner address in Florida with a mailing address Dirt Legal in Arizona. And there's no way I can title that or transfer that Dirt Legal plate in Florida, because Florida will look at that Arizona title and say, hey, why does it have a Florida address on it? And then if they see that there's Dirt Legal's name across the top, that's going to make them ask some questions. On top of that, if you're a Florida resident and you buy your bike out of state, say Arizona, like you bought it from Dirt Legal, and you bring it to Florida, and you're a Florida resident, you're required to transfer that registration to Florida. And if you don't, well, technically you're violating the law. So how do people get around that? Well, with Dirt Legal, you can register an LLC in that foreign host state, be it Arizona or South Dakota or whatever, and you can be Dave N. LLC with an address in South Dakota with another address in Florida. So if any of you guys went and got your off-road vehicle registered through Dirt Legal, how did your, not just your registration, how did your title come back? If you use an LLC, does it have the LLC at the top with your foreign out-of-state address and your Florida address on the bottom? Or does it still say Dirt Legal on the top? I'm guessing, and I don't know this, I'm guessing it'll have your LLC, and Dirt Legal knows where to send it because they registered the LLC, and it's going to have a service address, which is going to be to Dirt Legal, and then they could find out your LLC and send it. Now, technically, that's probably not legal either, because the only reason you're making the LLC is to get around the titling law. There's not really a legitimate business, so is it a fraudulent company? You know, is it one of those New York Trumpian things that could get you in trouble? I don't know. But I'm kind of curious if you've done that. In my case, I'm still having faith that the distributor will have that issue resolved and I'll be able to plate that bike. Otherwise, I don't know what I'm going to do. It might not be a keeper, and I'm hoping it is a keeper. One thing I haven't figured out entirely is whether this new hurdle with NHTSA applies only to new bikes, or if I bring in a bike from another state which wasn't as diligent to check NHTSA and it was already titled when I brought it to Florida, will Florida reissue a title even though it's not in the system? And I think the answer to that is no. I don't think it has to do with whether or not the bike is previously titled. Consider this bike. It came from Alaska. It was titled. It's a Mark IV Rickman Matisse, and it wasn't in the system here in Florida, and it's not in NHTSA. But they simply added it to the system. Now, why? Was that because it had a title? No, I don't think so. I think the trick here is these older bikes before 1982 didn't have a 17-digit VIN, and therefore the VIN, what are you doing, Bruno? Can't be decoded. And if it can't be decoded, NHTSA can't block it. And in that case, Florida simply added it. And they've done that with a number of my antique bikes, which takes me to the procedure on titling antique bikes, particularly if you don't have a title. In Florida, antique bikes, I think that's 25 years or older, you can title them on a bill of sale. They had put some obstacles in the way, made it hard to do, but they've now streamlined the process. And this works if you're bringing a bike in from out of state that you bought, it's an antique bike, and you need to get a title for it. It doesn't work if you're buying the bike from a Florida resident, because that Florida resident was supposed to get a title for it before he sold it to you. And I think that's so they can collect sales tax. But anyway, first off, you start with this notice of sale or bill of sale. This is the Florida form for a bill of sale. And it has a perjury clause on it. I swear I'm telling the truth under penalty of law. And if you use that form, it doesn't have to be notarized, but it has to be completely filled out by you and the seller and signed. There's an odometer statement there. But on top of that, you also need this from the seller. And the buyer doesn't sign this. This is a hold harmless agreement. And this is the one that I use. It's patterned after the one on the Florida Highway Safe Motor Vehicle, whatever they call themselves, the Florida DMV. And it doesn't have to be notarized if it has a perjury clause, but I say get it notarized anyway. That will help you. Florida wants to make sure you're not creating fictitious characters to sign your paperwork. If you have it notarized, they at least know there was a real person behind the transaction and they're less likely to question it. However, if you don't get it notarized and you have the perjury clause, take down the seller's driver's license number and put that on the form with a copy of her driver's license. That should probably work, although that's not how I do it. But I figure this, if the seller isn't willing to give you a notarized bill of sale, basically saying the bike is his to sell, and or he's not willing to give you a copy of his driver's license, well, there's your sign. You probably shouldn't be doing business with that seller. But if you get that paperwork, bring it to Florida, along with a VIN verification that any notary can do, you can get your bike titled simply by going to the tax collector. Good news, there's no need to take that bike for a antique vehicle inspection and VIN verification at the regional office. We now let you file these papers either at your local tax collector's office or at your local fast tag office. And that, my friend, is how you get antique bikes without a title, titled in Florida.